Saturday Night Live has turned on Kamala Harris. Yes, the historically left-leaning sketch show is joining other rusted-on Democrats who are abandoning Kamala Harris in droves. Sky News All Stars Rita Panahi, James Morrow and Kosha Gada take a deep dive into Kamala Harris's week from hell and ask whether it has affected her polling numbers in the lead-up to the election. Kamala Harris's honeymoon period is well and truly over. This week, Saturday Night Live once again roasted the VP in a hilarious skit that poked fun at her long-winded answers.
Okay, 100 people surveyed, top 6 answers on the board. Name something that you keep in your glove compartment. Oh, VP Harris.
Steve, look, I was raised in a middle-class family, all right?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, my mother raised my sister and me, all right? Yeah. She worked hard and saved up.
Yeah,
And we had a second mother, too.
Okay. Did that mother have a glove compartment?
A small business owner named Miss Shelton.
Okay, we got that. Something that you keep in your glove compartment.
Oh, a Glock, Steve. A big old Glock.
Oh, snap. Okay, so you strapped like that. All right. Show me the blip, blam, blicky. All right.
Commentators reacted to the satire on X, saying the brutal skit shows that Kamala Harris is in trouble. When SNL is doing skits like this, you know that they think Kamala's cooked. Mood shifted. I see zero on-the-ground excitement for her. The whole administration is a joke to normal people. A sick, sad, long joke that we're ready to be done with. And this commentator agreed, saying, "You know it's over when the Democrats have lost SNL. They just destroyed Kamala Harris." And it wasn't just Kamala Harris who they targeted. Joe Biden was also mocked in the same episode, spelling disaster for the Democrats.
I'd like to buy a vowel.
Well, that's the wrong game, player.
Come on, Conan. What are you doing? It's me. I'm still the president. I'm Joe. I may be older, but I'll beat the hell out of you. I'll pop you. I'll give you a knuckle sandwich. I know how to do it. I can make sandwiches. And guess what? Here's the deal. I'm not the old one now. Trump is. The only difference, I know when to walk away. About 6 months too late.
Okay, show me whatever that was.
This commentator said, "This is now the third week in a row of SNL openly mocking Joe Biden's dementia, more than all prior years combined." The SNL roasting comes after Kamala's week from hell, where she struggled to get through a series of off-the-cuff media appearances, reveals Sky News All-Star James Morrow.
And speaking of teleprompters, Vice President and would-be future Madam President Kamala Harris found herself speaking without a teleprompter this week. Let's see what sort of off-the-cuff words and wisdom she had to offer, shall we?
So when we think about what's at stake in this election, whoa, it's packed with some stuff. It's packed with some fundamental stuff. I say rather articulately.
Oh yeah, it's packed with some stuff, all right. Whew.
James Morrow then went on to reveal Kamala Harris's supporters are abandoning her in droves following her recent chaotic media appearances.
Despite these sorts of near-daily performances from Harris, the race between Donald Trump and Kamala is effectively tied. But there are some serious warning bells that key demographic groups without whom Harris cannot win the election, are abandoning her in droves. Like, for example, male voters who are worried about the economy and their jobs and for the most part don't know what a brat summer is and don't respond to the Democrats' scare campaign on abortion, which is about all the Democrats have left.
Sky News All-Stars Rita Panahi and Kosha Gada agree, highlighting another colossal Kamala media fail from the week.
Kosha, while Florida is hit with Hurricane Milton, which has pounded the state with ferocious 100-mile-per-hour winds, producing a series of devastating tornadoes, The vice president, the woman who wants to be leader of the free world, was kicking back, having a beer with late-night lefty TV host Stephen Colbert.
I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay, so cheers. There
cheers.
You go. There you go. Ooh.
Kosha, we have hundreds dead after Hurricane Helene. We've got many more missing, injured, homeless. Hurricane Milton was about to make landfall in Florida, and the Veep is lying about the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, and giggling and drinking beer with Colbert. I mean, to me, that should be the next Trump ad.
And it probably very well will be, Rita. Before this hour is up, he's been doing this thing where he just takes live, raw footage of her and says, I'm Donald Trump, I approve this message. Look, I think on a macro level, it is interesting to see that she's suddenly doing this media blitz, albeit with friendly outlets. It is, I think, telling a little bit because it's an about turn from the strategy her campaign was pursuing in the last 35 days or so. But the specific outlet, the way it was set up with the beer and the laughing and all of that, with the backdrop of, unfortunately, despite the evacuation orders, we are going to see hundreds of people die, and hundreds of people already did with Hurricane Helene. It's a fair point. It does come across as not the best judgment or a little bit tone deaf. And I'll make another second quick point too. I get late night TV and it's meant to be sort of fun and drinking and all that on there is appropriate. Millions of people do, but I don't think it was actually the smartest move for her because there have been memes on the internet about her, you know, maybe being a little bit more prone to the drinking and also just she's trying to establish herself as a serious person. And I don't know that that really helps advance that. So on multiple levels, I don't think it was a wise move, but you know, in the media cycle that we're in, it'll probably be forgotten and covered with her next appearance in the next outlet she's going to do.
You're right there, Kosha. Even Saturday Night Live made some jokes about Kamala's fondness for wine. I think it's a little bit unfair, but that narrative is certainly out there.
James Morrow agrees, saying Kamala's media blitz has backfired.
This whole media blitz that she's been on just isn't working on moving the needle with kind of everyday voters because they see that she's authentic, that she's not for them. And if that's the case, what is the point of getting out there? Is it about reassuring the elites that she's on their side, that, you know, she can still win? What is, you think, the whole point of this media blitz if it is not actually doing what you would think it's supposed to do, which is to move the polls in her favor?
So I totally agree with you. I don't think the media blitz is for the American people. It's not for average people. What I think happened was I think the elites, the rich people who are in her corner, got embarrassed by the idea that she can't handle an interview. They just felt like it cannot be that this person we're championing literally cannot answer questions, including from, you know, very, very sympathetic hosts. You know, people were like slobbering all over her, you know, like Howard Stern and Stephen Colbert. And I think that her team sort of felt pressure to sort of prove to the rich people who love her that she is up to the task, that she can land this thing. And so they sent her out on this media blitz, which of course backfired atrociously because she couldn't think of one thing to say that she would do differently than Joe Biden, which was like the one thing they needed her to say, which is like, you know, I represent change, things are going to get better. And when posed with that question, she literally, you know, on The View, she said, I can't think of a single thing. And then she got a chance again to answer the question on Colbert, and all she could say is, you know, look at me, I'm not Joe Biden. I mean, it's not very reassuring, is it?
And even CNN couldn't muster anything positive to say about the Harris campaign's tough week.
She had a terrible week. It was a terrible week for the Harris this campaign. You had Gretchen Whitmer having to apologize to Catholics across America for mocking them with some bizarro Dorito thing on there. You had Governor Elmer Fudd out hunting and not knowing how to load his shotgun, using the wrong gun. At the same time,
Who's Governor Elmer Fudd?
Governor Walz was out there. Looked like Elmer Fudd. You know, be very, very quiet while hunting for rabbits. Oh my God. Right? So he can't load his shotgun. He's trying to appeal to hunters. He can't load the gun. He's using the wrong gun. At the same time, you have Barack Obama in Pennsylvania where he derided people who own guns. Remember, people in Pennsylvania were bitter and they clinged to guns and religion. Remember that in 2008? So they're trying to appeal to those folks at the same time while he alienates black male voters by chastising them. So they had a really tough week.
And all of this has culminated in a disappointing campaign for Kamala Harris. with the Democrats having to now readjust their expectations of the VP, reveals former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney.
And Mick, I'm hearing a lot of rumors flying around about internal polls for the Harris campaign that are showing her losing to Trump in key states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And I'll note that journalist Mark Halperin has said that Kamala Harris is in a lot of trouble. In the conversations I'm having, he said, with Trump people and Democrats with data, they're extremely bullish on Trump's chances in the last 48 hours. Now, remember, Halperin, of course, called Biden pulling out 3 days before he did it. This is all pointing to wobbles in the Harris campaign. What do you reckon? What's your read on all of this?
It's fascinating to watch the language, James, that the campaigns use. I wrote a piece at The Hill. You had a Hill piece there just on your graphic. I wrote a piece in The Hill today talking about the language that the Democrats are using, and they're starting to sort of lower expectations for Kamala Harris, to sort of maybe grease the skids that she's going to lose, but it's not her fault. They're talking now about something called the electoral system or the electoral college bias. Now it's unfair that the Democrats have to win so much more of the popular vote in order to win the presidency. Of course, the popular vote constitutionally in this country doesn't make any difference. But I think what you're seeing from Halperin, you're seeing from a lot of high-ranking Democrats inside the Kamala inner circle starting to hit the panic button. They're seeing some data that really bothers them. Now, that being said, there's some language out of the Trump campaign that makes me wonder if they're not seeing some data that worries them as well. He came out today and talked about offering tax deductibility for interest payments on cars, something that every Democrat candidate has talked about for a long time. So I think both sides are a little bit worried, but right now I think the Democrats are starting to get a little bit more worried as we get into these last 3 or 4 weeks.
And the polls are in line with Democrat thinking, with recent results showing a very tight race.
Of course, the election is on November 5, and it appears that Donald Trump has turned the dial his way just weeks out from the US election. It may only be slight, but joining me live is Axios political reporter Steph Knight. Steph, is that the way that you're reading it at the moment, that the dial has turned slightly to Donald Trump?
He has certainly made some ground in some of the key battleground states that he would have to win in November to win the Electoral College, specifically in Michigan and Wisconsin. But, I would note that we continue to see every single poll that comes out, both the national polls and also these battleground state polls, they are within the margin of error. It's really hard to overstate how close this election seems to be at this point. Harris has had only recently been slightly outperforming Trump in some of these polls, and also the shift from President Biden at the top of the ticket to Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket also means that there are slightly different states at play because of the different appeal that Harris may have compared to Biden. But there have certainly been some encouraging polls for Trump this week, but we do seem to see that change just about every day, every week. It changes pretty quickly.
Yeah.